I don't know if I can make it.
October 17th.
Contract like maybe tomorrow, and then we sign it, and then it's like good now. So we just have an effective date.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Salem High School Building Committee meeting for September 19th, 2024. I'll call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Hissing sound. Okay. So we're going to kick it off with the update on the school building committee membership. So the mayor was going to provide an update, or actually he has, through an email that you all should have received. And he did inform us he was going to be a little bit late, but since you all received that email that spoke to the change in membership, we've decided just to leave it as is. And then if you should have any questions about that, the mayor, when he gets here, can answer those later on. Did you all get the email? Is there anyone that did not receive the email? Okay. Is there anyone that has questions that we'll be able to answer when the mayor comes? That's kind of a weird question.
Well, I mean, so let me just, so to summarize, we did a little sort of administrative work acknowledging that Anthony, who is a resident of Salem, should be a voting member, and Lisa, who is a critical member of the committee, is not a Salem resident, so that's a one for one. And then Chantel resigned.
Yes.
Because she had other commitments. So those are the changes if you missed the email for some reason.
Good. All right. Let's keep it moving. So the next item on the agenda is vote to approve the June 20 meeting, but we do not have a quorum.
Not quite yet.
So
Chasing after people.
yeah. So we'll have to move past that one. What do we have today? What do we have for members today?
We have 7 voting members here, and we need 9, so we need 2.
All right. Well,
So it's my understanding that Jenna is coming, and she isn't here yet, and also the Yamili is coming and Ginger are here. So I think if they show up, we'll be good.
good. All right. So why don't we just roll into update on designer selection? Am I handing it off to you, Margaret?
Rick, do you want to
Sure.
talk about this, or would you like to?
I'm happy to.
Okay.
So we received, just to summarize, we received 8 applications, 3 of which were teams of architects, which is not unusual for a project of this size and scope. I wasn't planning on listing them all. Should I do that?
I don't think you need to.
Okay. So we received 8 applications. We met as a committee. We discussed how and where those applicants met or did not meet some of the criteria that we had articulated in the request for qualifications. Facilitated by Answer, who had put together a matrix for us that cross-referenced all the firms with some of those criteria. And the next steps are that 3 members, Anna, I think I saw down there, and Anna, Beth Ann, and Lisa will be attending a meeting with the designer selection panel of the Mass School Board Authority, where they will spell out some of those thoughts that we had on the criteria and how the applicants did or did not meet the criteria that we had spelled out. And then the Mass School Board Authority Designer Selection Panel will create a short list of 3, which we will then interview. Designer Selection Panel will interview. We will attend. When is that?
So the interviews are on October 8th.
October 8th. Oh, it's on the screen.
Yeah, on the screen.
So typically there would be 3. Occasionally they will select 4 people for shortlist, but as a rule it would be 3. That's where we are.
That's where we are. Exactly.
So yeah, okay, so there it is. That meeting is on the 24th of September, the designer selection to create the shortlist.
And that's a public meeting, correct?
That's a public meeting that would be posted on the MSBA website. We don't host that. We attend their meeting. So.
Thanks, Rick. Any Mark, anything to add before I open it up for questions?
Nope.
Questions, anyone?
So the one comment I will add is that, so when this group next meets on the 17th, we will have a designer on board. So it will be a very exciting meeting, and you should come.
You should come to all meetings. They're all exciting.
Exactly, they're all exciting, right? We say that. Okay. All right, so now I think with Jenna arriving, we do have a quorum.
Oh, okay, yes. I went to the wrong one.
So, Nate and Rick, if you want to circle by the minutes, you could do that.
I'm just wondering, can we vote the June minutes when we didn't have a quorum at that meeting?
We had a quorum on June.
Oh, that was July. Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
We sent around notes from the last
You're right.
meeting, just
Okay,
as
you're right.
notes.
Sorry. That's what
Trips
happens
us all up.
I lose track of days when you retire and months. So I'm
If
sorry.
I know what it is.
It's difficult. It's difficult. Yeah, I know. Today is Thursday, right? No. Okay. So why don't we go back to item 3, which is vote to approve the June 20th meeting minutes. Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? Anyone even remember? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. Okay. So, vote to confirm proposed finance working group.
So I think if that one, we should wait until the mayor's here. We have talked about this a little bit in the last couple of meetings, but it is something that you all need to take a vote on because you're delegating some authority to a subset of this group. So
Okay.
let's circle back.
Okay, you can do that. Okay. And we have reached a record time. Although it gives a lot longer time for items 6 and 7. Discussion of key opportunities of the project.
Okay, so at the last meeting, and I'm not gonna try to guess here, try to reconstruct who was in attendance. We had a great discussion. We went around the room and we asked everybody here to say a couple words about what they thought were, from their personal perspective, or personal and professional perspective, were the key opportunities of the project. So I know that some of the folks that I see here have not spoken. So, for instance, Hadassah, I don't think you were at that meeting, right?
No, I don't think it was.
Do you want to maybe start and say what you're excited about about this project, or what you think could be great about it?
Yeah, of course. So I am a junior at the high school currently right now, and I think it's really cool to be a part of this meeting because my siblings are planning to go to the high school too. So I have an 8-year-old sister and a 4-year-old brother that should be going into the high school around the same time. I'm not sure exactly the timeline, but I think it's cool.
Don't worry, nobody really knows.
I was thinking that, but I wasn't going to say it.
Yeah, so I think it's cool to help contribute to that for my siblings specifically. Also, I think it's cool that the high school is improving and stuff. Even if I'm not going to be in attendance when it's there, I think it's cool that we're building off of it and stuff.
Great. Megan, you spoke very passionately at the last meeting. Do you want to recap anything that you said?
Oh goodness. I think I spoke a lot about the opportunities related to the physical structure and access and just welcoming for the community and, utilizing it for other options within the community. As someone that didn't grow up here, so I was not familiar with the high school the first time I went, it was kind of very confusing and didn't seem easy to navigate from both a just physical presence, but also from a getting there presence. So I think pedestrian access and being able to really connect the high school to the other parts of the city was, I think, a big piece that I spoke with.
I mean, I think you specifically used the word scary,
Yeah,
describing the high school.
well, it is Salem, so.
Jenna, what could you add to this?
I agree on those points and, of course, the sustainability and opportunities, and really kind of thinking about how that, it's not just a building that's sustainable, but it sort of fosters an educational program, and particularly with CTE, but other parts of it. And so I see this as a real opportunity to integrate your physical and your educational aspirations together and really build to the future, like a very integrated model of education, which maybe they were trying with back in the 70s, but I'm not sure quite worked, particularly on the vocational side.
Well, you probably appreciate what Elizabeth said, which was, I would say, the tagline for the last meeting, which was, the building should unleash collaboration.
Yeah.
Right? Do you want to expand on that at all?
Well, that's exactly what I would say. Again, I hope that the physical space sparks, unleashes collaboration across all kinds of departments, but also allows the school to design educational experiences for students that, you know, meet their needs and their post-secondary aspirations.
Anna, do you want to add to anything? You talked about the financial implications.
Yeah, I think I just said something along the lines of course, there would be a substantial amount of local resources needed for the project, but the resources that are available from the MSBA, that amount of money is like a generational amount of money that comes in. Like that amount of money isn't available to a community otherwise, and so that amount of money just in and of itself, sort of being able to leverage it in the ways that everyone is talking about, because communities don't see that type of money unless they are doing a project like this, and so it's just a generational amount of money that would be coming in. So it's that in itself is very exciting.
Yeah. Neil, you had that statistic at the last meeting about the percentage of emissions this building is responsible. The high school's responsible.
The high school's about 25%.
Jaw-dropping.
About 25% of our emissions. So I think I view it as an obligation for us to make this building as close to net zero emissions as possible, but to do as much as we can and potentially have it benefit not even that building, but maybe even surrounding buildings, and explore things like network geothermal and that sort of thing. But there's a sort of a baseline that if we don't hit it, then our goals, our sustainability goals, sort of go out the window as a city. So.
Well, Betsy also was here at the last meeting. Betsy, you want to recap?
Sure. I went at it from the as an FF&E specifier, as an interior designer, to provide an engaging environment for the students to collaborate in, was, with ergonomic seating.
And Anthony, you were here too, but
I talked about longevity.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that I hope
And
that.
flexibility.
Yeah,
Right.
I had similar points to Bob. I hope that none of us can see the future, but I hope that we, as much as possible, think about creating something that for decades is going to be a useful space, and that hopefully 50 years from now nobody is cursing this committee that why didn't they think of this? Or why did they do it this way? This is something, yeah.
So Steve, you were at a wedding.
Was, yes. My brother got married. I wish I were here. No.
This is being recorded.
I mean, I could talk for a long time on this. I mean, this is a generational opportunity for this community, and it's incredibly exciting. I had the chance. I was at the high school today, and I'm a little biased, but I think we have like the most amazing kids in the Commonwealth. Like, our high school is a great place to be. Everybody was engaged, focused. The high school is really a school on the move. It just lacks one thing: a state-of-the-art facility that can deliver what I think our kids deserve to have, is the best of the spaces and the learning experiences that a lot of other local communities now have. Brand new spaces to learn. And when I think about our strategic plan, which is really focused on young people having choice when they leave our schools, whether that's to go into career or college. That should be their choice. We're very fortunate to have a high school that offers a ton of different pathways for young people to make those choices, but the spaces don't match right now, and this is a chance to really make sure that the spaces are set up for our kids to really be positioned to have a serious competitive advantage. Again, I think they already have an advantage, but we will be blowing people out of the water when we have a space that can match what we offer young people. For a high school of 900,000 kids, we're almost at 1,000 now, there is so much available to young people, and we're fortunate to have the career technical spaces, but they're spaces from way before I was born. I'm not going to point at people who were born at that time, but they're outdated spaces, and this just gives us an unbelievable opportunity to be planning, not just for for the next the years when it opens, but to position to think about how do we create a learning environment that's going to be preparing young people for what higher ed and careers look like for 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. And I think what's exciting is that we get to, in this group, to really think about what that can look like. And I think some communities, I like, one thing I love about Salem is Salem's always willing to do things a little different than everybody else. And this is an opportunity where making sure that we are willing to be bold, different, and not just settle for like a stagnant school or a traditional school. This is our chance to get it right in the flagship building that is not only about the other thing I'd say to Meg's point, I mean, it's also could be amazing for the community as a whole. That high school should be a place where everybody convenes and that people are proud of as a space, not just where our kids are educated, but where the community can go to gather. Salem doesn't have a ton of those places where there can be large gatherings for people to get together, whether it's concert performances, that kind of thing. So I could go on and on, but I'll pass it over to the retiree.
Nate, do you want to recap or you want to pass on to your?
No, I agree with everything everyone has said. This is a fabulous opportunity. I will say one thing. I've been here for a long time. There was a time not that long ago where, if you mentioned Salem Public Schools, you wouldn't necessarily get a warm and fuzzy feeling from someone who didn't really know the district. A lot of it is hearsay or that rumors. But boy, that's changed, and it's changed rather quickly now. And I'm in circles, and I tell people from Salem, and they say, we're interested in relocating in this area, and no longer do they say, but not for the school systems, we're not coming. So there's a movement, there's a feeling that Salem is on the move, and so it's amazing what you've been able to accomplish given the facilities that you're working with. So this is just gonna put it over the top. I love Meg's comment about, and you reiterated it. It's a community school, which is kind of neat. Or could be a community school.
Could be, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of neat.
Rick?
I think people have said pretty much everything. I think it's really important to meet kids where they are, and whether that means CTE or AP classes or both, or neither, or college prep or not, that it's our obligation to serve all of them equally. And I can't say how well the school does that now, having one daughter who has one track and is on a certain path in the school. So, but I can imagine that a better facility would do it that much better.
Paul, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, first of all, that I don't even remember what I did yesterday, so it's hard for me to figure out what I said a month ago. Doesn't bode well for you. But I will say that on a personal level, when I did the walkthrough, when the committee was just started and we were allowed to tour the facility, I had been in the high school for years and saw what was being done in the high school in spaces that were completely not designed for what was happening, and that to have a high school, or have any school, middle school, high school, that supports what goes on currently in this school and in the other school would be amazing, because we always say as architects and designers that we want to support and allow students and faculty to grow into the spaces that we create.
I think this is a little bit different because the students and faculty and teachers are already doing all that amazing stuff. They just need to sort of grow because they have the facility to allow them to continue to soar. It was amazing. It was very it was amazing to see.
Yeah. So Keith and Z, and Beth.
Hi.
You want to do that?
Yeah, so for me,
speak up.
it's CTE program. I'm excited about that, being in the trades, see more trades women and men going to the trade force, so that's what I'm excited about. Expanding that.
Expanding that capacity.
Obviously a generational opportunity, just I guess some things people didn't touch on. There's some discussion, the grade reconfiguration, that is something that not a lot of communities get to think about. We have an opportunity here. It seems like it could really be a source of like community inspiration and pride. I'm not saying that we're lacking that, but it would certainly coalesce that a lot. So that's good. I think we could improve on the transportation. From an engineering standpoint. But yeah, it's just lots of opportunities. The CTE thing, somebody had mentioned at one point, maybe collaborating with some of the other communities. That'd be awesome.
Great, thank you. Z?
I think on the facility side, having a training that's user-friendly, staff-friendly, and student-friendly. Over the many years that I've been in the building, we've had various types of issues that we can draw upon and learn from. We also want to create, almost like a building in the future, and like with this clean slate that we have, it's our opportunity to do so. Not only for the students now, but the students in the future, and also the alumni coming back to see the new building, and also kind of creating almost like a hub for the city of Salem. And this will cause a domino effect on other things, for transportation, for growing partners in the city, that will create better opportunities for students and staff.
Lisa, the last word is yours.
I basically can agree with everything that's been said, but I have to say that Ian Kim knows this because we were in the meeting today, and although they're not here, Glenn and Mario are at open house, and just listening to them today and their vision of what this could look like was really inspiring. So it's just good to see it going forward.
Great. Well, in the email I sent yesterday, there is a copy of the notes from the last meeting. We didn't have a quorum, so they're just called notes. So this is great. If you can take a look at those to see what others said. But I think and enter fearless leader. Perfect timing. So Dominic, we just revisited the opportunities discussion that we had at the last meeting, and some of the folks who were here at the last meeting kind of reiterated what they had to say. Just to close that item, do you want to add anything? You talked about the last meeting. You made some great comments about the need for the building to be welcoming to all and utilized by the community. Do you want to reiterate anything you said, or should we read back your comments?
Yeah, read it back into the record.
You don't remember?
Well, we've been having memory discussions. So I'll read you what we wrote.
Okay.
The facility should support the mission of the school and should be well suited to support new teaching methods with appropriate technology. Should be a safe space for all, including teachers and students, while taking into account sustainability and the mission goals. Welcoming to all, utilized by the community, and the project should look at housing opportunities on the site.
I think that summarizes it pretty well.
There you go. Okay, well, I think that was great. So we're gonna close that item. Dominic, the thing that I would like to tackle before we toggle to Kim's discussion about educational opportunities and the conversation she started having with staff is the proposed finance working group. Because I think this committee needs to take a vote to delegate that to, and that's the motion. I want to sort of talk through what this was, so.
Yeah, so this is basically the creation of a smaller group to review the invoices as they come in. You know, I think as the project picks up steam, there's going to be a lot of paperwork going forward, and this is a concept that the answer team had recommended has worked well in other districts that have gone through these projects, just to reduce the amount of time that this body has to engage in reviewing very specific things. Obviously, if there's larger decision points that have to be made by this committee or need to come before the group as a whole, that they still would, but that for most of the paperwork that's going to be coming through, it doesn't really, it's more efficient to have a smaller group of folks who are very fluent in the finances of the district and the city and Chapter 30B and the rest of the governing laws for these kinds of projects to review. So this delegates the authority to do that to a smaller group that we're suggesting be Anna Friedman, who's our finance director for the city, Elizabeth Pauley, who's the assistant superintendent for finance and operations, Lisa Golden, who is the school building liaison, and Anthony Delaney, who is the purchasing agent and chief procurement officer for the city. If there's anything you want to add to that, but.
Why don't I read the motion?
That would be great.
And then we can have some, open up for questions. So the vote to confirm proposed finance working group, the motion as stated, approve the creation of Salem High School Building Committee Finance Working Group, consisting of the City of Salem Finance Director, the Salem Public Schools Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, the Salem School Building Liaison, and the City of Salem Chief Procurement Officer. 2, delegate authority to the Finance Working Group of the Salem High School Building Committee, the review and recommendation for payment of invoices to the mayor for signature. And 3, delegate authority to the Finance Working Group of the Salem High School Building Committee, the review and recommendation to execute Salem High School building project contracts and contract amendments. That's the motion. Can I have a second? Thank you, sir. You second the motion?
Yes, although I also have a comment.
Okay, well, you got a second. Okay. I'll open up for questions, comments. Go ahead.
So I do feel obligated to point out that of this subcommittee of 4, there's only 1 voting member. So it'll be a quorum of 1, I guess.
That's pretty good, though.
Okay.
So I think just to respond, and correct me if I'm incorrect about this, but this group is really reviewing and then making a recommendation to me as the person who signs contracts and pays invoices, whether or not to approve, if it's in accordance with all of the requirements of the law and of what we're expecting as a committee. It's not actually to sign off on invoices or warrants or payments of themselves. The authority is still with the chief elected officer.
So, like, item number 2, perhaps, review and recommendations for payment.
Right, so it's recommendation versus the mayor from researcher. So I recognize that there's only 1 voting member of the committee on the working group, but because the working group is effectively a reviewing body, I don't have an issue with that.
Any other discussion? Go ahead, please.
And I can just potentially provide some additional clarity. This would be in addition to the existing structures that exist in the city for payment of invoices, and so it basically is just, it would come in through our normal city process once this group has said, yes, these invoices are, we reviewed them with answer, and if this work happened, it was done correctly, and then it's basically just saying, yes, it's okay to now submit this into the school and the city to go through their proper controls and procedures to pay them, and so there would be other steps and controls that are built in once it even comes to the city to pay it. And ultimately it goes on the warrant, which gets my signature and the mayor's signature before it can ever be paid.
So you've been looking at these things a couple of times.
I've been seeing them twice.
Super efficient.
Thanks, that's helpful. Please.
Margaret, could you just, for others, kind of go through the process of particularly a construction invoice? Because I think it's much different than you would see for most other invoices.
Right.
And I think it would be helpful for anybody who doesn't know, or for the public, recording, how a construction invoice of this type of project is processed before it gets to the point of even going into the actual city system and being signed.
Yeah, and Gary, you should chime in on this as you think you can expand. The thing I will say about this is not a proposal for construction requisitions. I think when we get to that point, there are going to be other folks involved. But what is true, what's different about the consultant invoices from the construction requisition process is the construction requisition process includes review by the architect as well as ourselves. So there's a couple of different layers of folks looking at the construction requisition before it would come to this group. And I think it's likely it will be doing it a little different because the amount of money involved is substantially different month to month. Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, in addition to having the architect, and they can get it, back out, there's what they call a draft or pencil requisition, it comes out first. You get together with the contractor to review, potentially walking the site. So there's a lot of stopgaps in advance of even getting to if there is a subgroup to approve at that point. I think that the working subgroups like this can help things to be more flexible, and I don't really see it as that different because in communities where we have to go to the building committees with this, most people are relying on those people anyway to have looked and be making the recommendations prior to the entire committee approving it. So it's really, if the city process is okay with it, which we checked and it is, then it's a good way to have that happen. We can still be reporting on it, which we will be at each of the building committee meetings. The committee will receive the financial documents, the budget tracking, invoice tracking. You'll see, how everything that's done, and we'll report on it. It's just the actual voting of. And it's just a bit of a logistical issue that actually, when you get into construction, can be pretty tricky. Scheduling building committee meetings to happen at a specific time in the month so that you have all the invoices, in particular the construction invoice that's been vetted and approved, and bringing it to the committee for approval so that it can then be paid, and only once paid, submit it. I know it's getting the weeds, only then go to the MSBA ProPay system in order for the city to get reimbursed. It's a lot of effort, and if you don't have a quorum, then people aren't getting paid, then you're not submitting your invoices to the MSBA, and you're not getting your reimbursement back real time. It can happen, we do it, but it can be a struggle. So this is, if city and other municipalities allow for it, and you appoint the right people to be reviewing these things and recommending payment, my general sense is that most of the people in the room are gonna be looking to those same people anyway to say, have you reviewed this? Do you agree with this? Is this? And then back to what Margaret said, there's checks along the way. So when the invoices come in, and right now they're ours, so you have to review them and make sure they're okay. But when the designer comes on board or other people come on board, it's our responsibility to vet them, to make sure they're, within the contracted amount, within the purchase order, that they're valid for the amount of, what they're asking for is valid for the work that has been done. So I think there's a lot of checks and balances along the way. It's really just kind of a logistical piece in my opinion.
I agree, and I think what would be different when we get to construction requisitions, that we would want to add someone from the city who was experienced in construction to that group. And I'm not even gonna guess who it might be at that point, because, people come and go. But you would definitely want someone from the city with that kind of background. And there isn't someone on this committee right now, so now you would either bring them onto the committee or you'd bring them onto the finance board.
I can add.
Please.
You guys are, and the timeliness, I think, is critical, and I support this just to get the efficiency. It goes all the way down the pipe because contractors don't pay their subs until they get paid, and many of the subs are not as flush with cash as a larger contractor might be. So it sort of has ramifications through the whole project. And the more timely you pay for fair work, the better contractor relationship you're gonna have, and the more we can push them to do things we need them to do. But if we're not paying them timely, everything becomes very difficult because they always have the hand to say, well, I've not been paid yet for my work. So I think it's important for us to think of an efficient way, but obviously to scrutinize these things. And that goes with the designer too.
Yeah.
A designer that's paid fairly and in a timely fashion is gonna be a lot easier to work with.
please, Meg.
Thanks. I also support the idea. My one concern, and you touched on it briefly, is just the transparency of the items that are being passed through or approved. You know, I agree with looking to Anna and Anthony for is this fair, but the committee as a whole should be aware of what's being paid and processed and all that. So I love Anna's reports that are sent to the council every month and quarterly on city business. So I'm assuming it would be a similar process in that regard, just so we, even if as a member of the work or the group, we're not a member of the finance working group, we're still aware and conscious of everything that's being passed through.
We do send out monthly to the committee or put it in a shared area that everybody can access it in shared Dropbox or Google Drive. Our monthly budget reports, and they typically report on the actual budget in addition to what contracts or encumbrances have been made and what's remaining in the budget, what invoices are being requested this month. So they're broken out. You can see actually total invoicing to date and what's being requested this month. The backup is more than you'll want, but you can actually find each invoice and find the one for that month. Budget, invoicing, and then also cash flows, which will help people in the city in particular. So all of that stuff will be made available to everybody to see reported on monthly.
Do you think?
That's really good. I do think also to that point though, we should make a report of the finance working group, just a standing item on all regular committee meetings. Maybe there'll be nothing to report. Maybe it'll just be a 2-minute thing, but just make it a standing agenda item.
We do that at a current project I have now, where we report on anything that group has the ability to approve. Say, for example, we need to do some utility work and National Grid's involved. National Grid won't do their work until you pay them, and we're not necessarily going to wait till this committee meeting to say, hey, we need to get National Grid paid because it took us 6 months to get this order from them, and now they won't work. So that committee has the subgroup, and that committee has the ability to approve things like that. And every month at the meeting, it is an item in our finance section where we report back on anything that was approved by the subgroup in between the meetings, so that everybody here knows exactly what was approved by them, and we keep a log of that.
I think that's a reasonable recommendation to have them report each meeting. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, well now we're gonna circle back to education. And we're gonna turn the magic wand over to Kim, who is gonna talk a little bit about what she's been doing with staff and pick up the conversation we started last time, which was looking at several innovative high school programs and seeing where there would be resonance for this high school project. So it's really kind of a visioning discussion, and Kim is in charge.
Okay. You introed with what I've been doing with staff, and I really only had a meeting with Mario and Glenn this morning.
It sounds like it was
So
a good
the
one.
answer to that is not much yet, but it was a very good meeting, and Lisa and I showed them a little bit of, we've started collecting some student stories from the middle school. We have the 8th graders. We have 126 stories that come in from the 8th graders, and I just gave a quick preview to Glenn and Mario, the kinds of data that we can get out of that. They got so excited they want to, well, I don't know if I should use the word excited, but they do want to send out the survey to all of the high school students. But we're going to also they're also going to try to do a little extra focus with the 9th graders to catch more of the 8th graders who were in the pilot program last year that are now 9th graders. So more on that to come, but there's some really interesting data, I think. Absolutely. Little glimpses that we had. But today, given the interest of time, I want to focus on the Sparks handout that we talked a little bit about, and I look at Paul because we were so excited, that was, that was
I
nice.
remember that.
You got
Yep.
extra credit.
You got extra credit. So here's what I have in mind for this. I just want some small group discussions, one group per school. There are 4 schools, so we want 4 groups. There are 17 people here. I'm going to make the facilitator executive decision to say, Hadassah, you get to choose where you want to go, because you're the student, you're going to be in high demand. So if you have looked at these 4 schools, you get to pick which one you want to go talk about. Other than that, we want about 4 people per school. And I was thinking, I had thought about, well, I could pick up the groups, but you never know who's really going to show up. I would suggest that our head honchos maybe divvy yourselves up across the 4 groups, so you're not one group all by yourselves. That maybe our finance people divvy themselves up some. And other than that, you give yourself some diversity across the groups. Maybe also, in the interest of time and keeping it somewhat simple, if a couple people can get like extra chairs and pull them around to meet, so you're not, it's gonna be a little tough to do groups like that. So we want a group over there at that side. We could do a group here, and a group right about where Anthony is. So far so clear. And then what I'll do is I'll give each group one of the papers just in case you need a little refresher what the schools were. It's like, okay.
You're all thinking the same thing I was thinking.
Same quiz. And I also have a paper just, that there's some really simple questions. You could just do what you see that you like and what possibilities or opportunities you see. There are a couple other questions you could consider, just particularly in relation to Salem's mission. And identify one group member to report back, but we'll give you a heads up on time before you have to do that, okay?
How much time do we have in total?
About half an hour, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, and does that include the group report?
However you want to handle it. We have time.
We have time. Then I'm gonna say, let's say 25 minutes for discussion, and then we'll do report, we'll have a report out, okay? So that'll give us 3 minutes to get yourselves into your, the more constraints, the more creative you are, right? That's the way that works. So. We're ready for a report out. So which group would like to go first?
So moved. Motion carries.
Goes mine then?
Paper and a desk, quickly write the name of the school at the top of the paper.
Sound hot.
Lovely, that's great.
So, as expected, we didn't follow the rules. But we did have a robust discussion, particularly around some of the questions, so we'll just sort of go through this. So we talked a lot about interdisciplinary
Which school, Paul?
spaces. This high-tech high, which essentially is irrelevant at this point.
Okay, didn't follow the directions.
Good start.
But I think a lot of these things were sort of triggered by that school, in particular, my experience with it. So this idea that interdisciplinary spaces have to be, that's something that we have to strive for, and they need to be flexible. And they need to be flexible physically. That is, we can't just sort of have 4 walls that can't be moved or modified in the future. That's the physical part, but also they have to be flexible from the pedagogy part, which you can remove or open spaces up into other spaces or close them. And I think there was an example about, in the 1970s, all the spaces were open, so they were unacoustically isolated from each other, which was problematic. The resulting pendulum was, let's build classrooms with doors that were quiet and you couldn't see out and couldn't see into it. So this is an opportunity, we think, that you can sort of get away from both of them and have this hybrid, which allows flexibility and allows that sort of isolation, not isolation, but focus when you need. So then the second one was, can we embrace non-traditional practices? How willing is Salem? How far do we want to push? There were sort of the examples that we expect students will be the easiest of the groups to sort of embrace this kind of new way methodology of teaching. Parents are probably the harder ones because they will always say, well, that's not the way that I learned how to do mathematics. But that's happened throughout history. So, and then the teachers were the big critical component. And I think there were discussion about, well, you know, teaching in Salem is already forcing people to be flexible because the expectations of the community and the way the diversity and how things change all the time, that teachers are used to that flexibility, so that if you allow that flexibility to go into the new high school, they would be embraced. Is that
yeah.
Facilitating real world problems for students to solve. Again, this idea of project-based learning being an idea of having multiple disciplines working to solve a problem. So I think High Tech High was sort of the prime example of that in its day. I think it's the oldest of that list, I'm not sure, but so, you know, whether or not that can be instituted is a question in the high school. Is it the whole high school? Is it parts of the high school? Are there ways to revert back if it should fail? Is there a way to make sure that it can expand if it's very successful? This idea about there's a lot of energy around CTE classes. So talk about, you know, quintessentially project-based learning is CTE classes. But all students are attracted? No, not all students do CTE, but many are attracted.
Yeah, whether they're on a career track or a college track, there's tremendous interest. We have the data that shows that, you know, the demand keeps growing every year for kids that want those programs.
So one of the impediments could be, so private and charter schools and some Catholic schools are actually moving to schools that look different than the current high school. The question is, can Salem's high school, because of the state accountability system, the standardized testing, can they overcome essentially that criteria of accounting for success by having the school be more project-based learning? And I think I mentioned about, I think it was Iowa Big that had that movie that was showing that students who do project-based learning freak out because they think when they're faced with a standardized test that they didn't learn anything. And it turned out that they learned far more through critical thinking and experiential issues. But the caveat to that, it's still a marketing ploy, so we all have to be careful about embracing that as a prime example, a null example.
And that was Crosstown.
Crosstown, sorry. Yeah. Did I?
Outstanding.
Well, then let's give them the headline. Thank you. Who's next?
I'll go next. So we had Iowa Big in Cedar Rapids, and their program is predicated on three concepts: passion, projects, and community. In terms of passion, it's about finding what drives that student, what they're passionate about, and kind of building an educational path around that passion. In terms of projects, it's about the real-world applications or project-based learning, as Paul was talking about a minute ago. And then in terms of community, it's about how to be really engaged in the community, in our case, community of Salem. We kind of started with a conversation about what does Salem High do really well in terms of those three things. And the passion, I think, you know, these folks are much closer to it than I am because they're here all the time. But passion is really there. And the kids are really passionate about the things that they do and the things that they choose to do, especially around extracurriculars and all kinds of things. But the concern is, and Glenn has articulated this to Lisa and I think to Kim this morning, that it's not transparent, that it's not visible enough to what's people as they're coming through the school. And that's partly the building, it's partly, you know, how do we make that more visible as a program. And in terms of projects, the CTE does this extraordinarily well. Mario does that really well. But as he's articulated a couple of times to us, it's not commingled with the academics or the college math in any way. So finding a way to kind of make those hand in glove more would be something that Salem could improve on. And then in terms of community, we talked about a few things that happen, like the senior center comes to the Black Cat Cafe. They do evening adult classes for CTE, which draws in, adults. The music and theater program is really robust, and you get a lot of community participation in that. But is there a way to do more with either the CTE or the academic college bound in terms of how kids could be out in the community and the community could come into the school more? So could you do a service-based learning type project, be it CTE or academics or commingled, where they're doing a project with seniors, or they're doing a project with, North Shore CDC, or like they're doing some kind of program where they're working on a project together, or with Salem Coast Watch, or whatever the thing might be. So finding ways to integrate community activities into the academic day and the CTE experience. What else did we talk about? The hurdles to engaging the community is partly the educational program, but is also the building in terms of its visibility, from the street, where it is, and the resources that are available in the building, which this project will solve.
He said confidence.
Solve it all.
We had Crosstown High in Memphis, and it was an interesting project because it's in a redevelopment of Sears building, not directly in downtown, but certainly in a sort of part of Memphis that's denser, and it's not just the school. There's some other adaptive reuses within that building. So it's actually pretty small. What, 500? Right, but the school is 500 students, I think. Yeah. But we saw, talked a lot about the sort of adaptability of space and how you make something adaptable. And without, I think you brought it up, without just having it open, but then it's not good for one or the other. They had some interesting spaces in there, just sort of keeping it very simplified, the sort of core space, and then utilizing FF&E to really change your space some for the different and adaptable tables and being able to move them around, and the decorations and the interior space. And then creating that diverse range of learning opportunities, which was a big core focus of that, and using the kind of space and for that. And we thought that was, really kind of aligns with where Salem is and a lot of the direction of this project. And a lot of daylight, which is really nice to see. You can see it sometimes at Salem High where they want it, and then it's like not there, right, in other areas. So it's like you could see there, it was pretty integrated well. The community-based learning was great. Really great idea, brought up. That's kind of a decision of the, school committee and the schools to kind of go that direction, but you need a school that then can do that, right? So if your school decides we want to do this, you have to have a school that then can accommodate it. There's a lot of opportunities in Salem from, they had examples in Memphis of doing water quality monitoring, certainly a lot you can do around there with that, to like community-based projects, to getting minority and women-owned businesses, things like that. So that all is here in Salem or the North Shore in general. I think the stretch would be that, Salem High, even if you do a more visible project, just the location of it is a little bit sort of not quite, there's a lot to do in Salem Woods for nature-based education, but not the community-based. So you kind of need to deal with that transportation issue and make people feel comfortable and things like that, going into the community easily, and the parents and the kids. Anna, did you have things to add?
Most of them, I think, so we lost some of our team members, but some of the things that they pointed out included, it seemed like a very learner-forward type
environment, and that the space was accommodating of that, to Jenna's point, it sort of allowed for as you mentioned, the diverse range of learning opportunities. I think what else, we were trying to think about some places where there were some affinities with what Salem is doing now. It sounded like for some of the, I think it's a community-based learning, right, for the pilot program for 8th graders in Salem, so it sounds like there are some things that there's already a level of affinity there. So the biggest barrier in terms of doing some of what Crosstown High is able to do, it seems location based, that there would be different challenges that Jenna pointed out. So we were kind of talking through some of those. It seems like similar comments from other groups.
So we had Purdue Polytechnic. Purdue places a lot of emphasis on their non-traditional schedule and personalized learning, which charts a personalized path to success and elevates student voices. They are very proud of their interdisciplinary projects with a focus on career readiness. So we discussed how that kind of programming is simpatico with Salem's vision. It has a lot in common with the 8th grade Reimagining Middle School, which I think is now just called middle school. And it aligns with the city's commitment to the common good as outlined in its mission statement. So the project-based learning is definitely something that, as the question asked, would be an easier reach. The non-traditional schedule would be much more of a stretch, very complicated logistically for students and faculty. And I think we value consistency a little bit more than that degree of flexibility that Purdue offers.
Thank you. I'll collect stuff after we're all done, but if you want to go back to, I don't know, maybe it's up to you.
You can hang out where you are, or you can come back, whatever. We're flexible, like the school's gonna do.
Video that was a day in the life of Purdue Polytechnic. Did you watch that? It's basically like, it looks like a startup.
I think they also people are shooting the entire thing.
Yeah.
It also found like an hour long.
But it looks like a Silicon Valley startup. You see the spirit of like a big space.
Never have.
It's very different from what advertised. Kids do their homework and I'm like,
It's time for you to get into the world.
You're not even old. Any final thoughts?
October 17th,
Okay.
meet with the design team. Lots of work to do between now and then, but it will be exciting. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay. One thing I will say, I've been a bad boy. So, because there's a communication subcommittee, and quite frankly,
is that yours?
That's mine, yeah, and I haven't really done much. So I'm slapping myself in the hand. But I am going to regenerate that committee. But I do want to have a conversation with probably the mayor and the superintendent, just to talk about kind of what's been going on, so we can get something out to the community, because things are moving, and it seems like they're going to start moving a lot faster. And so it'd be nice to get some information out to the community. So
yeah,
I'll be in touch with some. Go ahead.
No, so we've been. Beth Ann has been sharing updates during the school committee meetings about reporting out on what this committee's been up to in this process. But I think a larger communication out would be great.
In different ways of getting the information out as well.
Yeah, I actually, so I do like a roadshow of talking to neighborhood associations, and it's usually a fun time to take in complaints about. But the last one, I actually took most of my presentation to talk about this project, about the facility master plan, the vision, and kind of the trajectory of the district as a whole. And there was maybe 50 or 60 people in the room, and I asked at one point, how many of you are part of the public school community, have a child in school, you're an educator? One person raised their hand.
Wow.
So I think that there's a
Yes,
larger scale of communication that we need to start engaging in
Yeah.
outside of the school community, because the folks who were there, I think, really appreciated hearing what was happening, because it was not on their radars.
Can I just say, the Salem Partnership just invited me to come talk about the project in November, I think. And I would love for maybe, I don't know, your schedule maybe, I don't know if it'll be open then, but, and Rick, I don't know if you're available, but I'll send you the date. It's a breakfast.
Sure.
And I think that's a good group to start circulating this work that's happening, and love for them to hear from more than just me, so I'll let you know.
maybe we'll connect.
Yeah.
So for those of you on the communications subcommittee, I'll be in touch shortly. And sorry. Anything else? Okay. Guess this was a good meeting. Really good information.
Public comment?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. We do have to reserve time for public comment. So, anyone who'd like to make a comment, feel free. Just state your name.
Yes. So
It's not a
I'm
blazer.
Larry Stein. I'm a resident of Salem. I live down in Willows. Both of my kids went to Salem High, so I was really pleased to hear all the buzz about that. I'm also principal of Arrow Street. We're one of the firms that applied for the project. We'd love to be here on the 17th. But either way, I will be deeply interested in what happens for Salem High because of my kids. I thought it was a great building, a great place, and I'd love to see it improve.
Thank you. Please.
Good evening. My name is Lori Coles. I'm a principal with H&H Architects. I'm not a resident, so this is public comment from slightly afar. Happy to have been here tonight to hear all you have to say, and as well, we have submitted and been very interested in the school. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Any other public comment? I probably should pay attention to the agenda.
There you go.
Okay, hearing none. A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, second?
Second.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for coming.